I'd like to first start out by thanking the jury for their hard work and diligence in arriving certainly at the appropriate verdict. I'd like to acknowledge the family and friends of Jeff German. It's been a long, tough couple of years, but finally justice has been served. I'd like to acknowledge the lawyers, and I'd like to acknowledge the lawyers actually on both sides. Mr. Draskovich and Mr. Harvath did a remarkable job on behalf of their client. But I'd like to further acknowledge the excellent work of my two prosecutors, Chief Deputy District Attorney Pam Weckerly and Christopher Hamner, who both did an outstanding job. Finally, today's verdict should send a message. And that message is a clear message that any attempts to silence the media or to silence or intimidate a journalist will not be tolerated. That's what occurred in this case. That's what occurred, and that's why today justice was served. So I'll take a few questions.
Could you address the wait, how long the deliberations took?
You know, juries do different things depending on the makeup of the jury, depending on the foreman. There was a lot of evidence in this case. There was a lot of video evidence. Some of their questions, they wanted an additional laptop. They wanted to look at some more of the video evidence. So I want to commend this jury. I think they took a lot of time to review this evidence. This is an important verdict. They gave the defendant in this case what he has a right to, which is an examination of that evidence. But at the end of the day, the jury did the right thing and came back with first degree with use of a deadly weapon, first degree murder with use of a deadly weapon, and both enhancements. This crime was committed with the use of a deadly weapon, and this crime was committed against an elderly person.
The jury kind of was throwing a curveball in closing with the defense there, basically pointing out the silhouette of a different looking person than Robert Tellis in the suspect's alleged vehicle there. How do you think that played into the big delay, or at least the length of time it took the jury to decide this? Because they had to go in the jury room and figure this out themselves.
Well, defense lawyers sometimes have to throw curveballs. That's their job. But I'll tell you, the jury hit the ball out of the park this time. They hit a home run by getting the right verdict.
Were you surprised by the length of the jury deliberation?
Yes, a little. To be candid, I think most everybody that followed this trial and watched this trial and was familiar with the evidence thought the verdict would come a little quicker. But again, there were over 400 exhibits. Many of these exhibits were video evidence. And I think the jury took their time and examined all of the evidence. That's what we want juries to do. We want them to look at all of the evidence. We want them to consider what the defense offers. But I'll say it again, at the end of the day, after looking at all the evidence, their verdict was clear and convincing.
Could you address him taking the stand in his defense?
Well, a defendant has a right to testify or choose not to testify. In this case, Mr. Tellis chose to testify. He gave narrative testimony. I think that the jury listened carefully. I was in the courtroom for a number of hours during this trial, and I was watching the jury. I was watching how the jury reacted to the evidence. And I think they gave Mr. Tellis the benefit of the doubt. They listened to him. But again, the jury verdict speaks for itself.
Do you think his decision to testify helped or hurt him?
You know, maybe that's what we'll ask the jury one day when this is all over.
Mr. Wolfson, what is the significance of testifying by narrative? Have you ever had a case where you've had a client, when you were a defense lawyer, testify by narrative?
It's certainly unusual. It is certainly rare. But sometimes, based upon the ethical rules that apply, a decision is made for a defendant to give a narrative.
What ethical rules might apply in a case like this?
I'm not going to speak to that at this point. You know, the case isn't over. We're going to a penalty hearing in about an hour. Certain witnesses will testify, and the jury still has another decision to render, and that's the decision of penalty.
What do you think is the appropriate penalty?
Well, they've got three options. They can come back with life without the possibility of parole, life with the possibility of parole after serving a minimum of 20 years, or a sentence of 50 years with minimum parole eligibility after 20 years. So the jury has options. I'm not going to invade the province of the jury at this time. I've got two excellent prosecutors that are going to present some information for the jury to consider. All respect whatever verdict, whatever sentence the jury comes back with.
Generally, in a case where you go to a penalty phase, what is it that a prosecutor is asking a jury to consider?
Well, during the guilt phase, they're asked to consider the evidence of guilt. You know, what evidence does the prosecution have to suggest that a crime was committed and that this accused person committed the crime? We're beyond that now. The jury came back with first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon against an elderly person. So there's a different consideration now. What is the appropriate punishment? So I'm sure that Mr. Draskovich and Mr. Horvath will present information on behalf of their own client. We will be presenting certain information that we want the jury to consider as well.
Forgive me if you answered this before I got here. What was behind the decision not to seek the death penalty in this case?
Well, there are certain cases that are appropriate for consideration of the death penalty and certain cases that aren't. A decision was reached that this was not an appropriate case to seek the death penalty.
I was asking why.
I'm not going to go into the analysis that went into that decision. I will tell you, in my 12 and a half years of being the district attorney, we have decided to file a death penalty in a number of cases, and we have decided not to file in a number of cases. Every case has its unique facts and circumstances, the background of the accused person, the gravity of the offense, the nature and circumstances. But a decision was made in this case not to seek the death penalty, but I'm confident that whatever sentence is rendered, that's a chunk of prison time that Mr. Tellis will have to serve.
Can you explain how the deadly weapon enhancement and the lying in wait factor could affect the sentencing?
I didn't hear you, Caitlin.
Can you explain how the deadly weapon enhancement and the lying in wait factor could affect the sentencing?
Well, the jury's going to consider all of the evidence. I mean, this was a crime, in our opinion, that was clearly premeditated. There was planning involved. It wasn't a decision in a couple of minutes or moments to kill Mr. Gehrman. There was planning involved. Lying in wait, I think the jury will consider that. The jury will, of course, consider that he brought a deadly weapon. So they will consider all of these things in their decision.
Did you know Jeff Gehrman personally, and just what can you say on a personal level about his work?
I knew Jeff for probably close to 40 years. He had a stellar reputation in this community. He was a zealot. He was an excellent investigative reporter. I did work with Jeff over the years. It's a crying shame, literally and figuratively, that he's no longer with us.
Sir, Mr. Tellis brought up a conspiracy theory that involved both private and public figures. Would you be willing to address some of the claims?
I think they're ludicrous. There was no conspiracy. The only conspiracy was between him and his evil mind. All of the people that he accused of being part of a conspiracy had no role in any conspiracy, and I think the jury's verdict speaks directly to that. That's it. Thank you. Very good.
Still with us, criminal defense attorney Marie Pereira and Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé. I just want to say what a class act, because he started by commenting, thanking the jury, the victim's family, all of the lawyers, including specifically the defense attorneys, as well as the verdict. Marie, your thoughts?
I think the verdict speaks to freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and that it is not acceptable to murder a journalist simply for reporting the truth. But you know, when they asked him about why didn't they choose the death penalty, he went on to outline all of the aggravating factors that are very germane to this case, and they still didn't seek for the death penalty. I would think maybe it's because of his lack of contact with the system, because that's the only box that's not checked off here.
Yeah, it is interesting that he said, I'm not going to go into that analysis. And he agreed with you when he said, if there's an attempt to silence media, this verdict sends the message it will not be tolerated. He went through, Philip, the 3 options that the jury will have in sentencing: life without parole, life with parole after serving a minimum of 20 years, or 50 years with the possibility of parole after serving the minimum of 20 years. Your thoughts about what might happen within that range?
Well, first of all, even if the jury comes back with the best case defense scenario that after 20 years he's eligible for a parole hearing, it doesn't mean he's getting out. Let's be clear. All it means he gets to go before the parole board and state his case and say, look, I'm a model inmate. Excuse me, I have no record. Yes, I started off with a dilly, but as you can see, I've had no brushes, no infractions. They can still turn him down just based on the circumstances of the crime itself. But at least he will have a shot, perhaps, depending on how the jury finds, at freedom at some point in the future, assuming he even lives that long. I just find it really tragic, and I don't know if Marie can weigh in on this. He threw it all away over a job that I believe only paid $120,000 a year. You know, as an elected official, you would think that if you're going to go out of your way to kill somebody because you stand to lose your reputation and a job that only pays $120,000 a year, as an attorney, you would think he could go out and match that plus. I mean, you know, look, they're in Vegas. Even with Lady Luck on his side, he could probably get that back in a week at the craps table, you know? So it's not big enough bucks to throw it all away over, you know? But the bottom line is the jury could give him a chance at parole, which I really doubt they will. And the reason why is they found all the special allegations true. Had they come back perhaps on a second degree, I could see them giving him a shot at freedom sometime in the future after a long stretch behind bars.
I agree with you. I don't think they will either. And I don't think he wanted the shame or embarrassment that it would have brought upon him. Instead, he chose to murder. Stay with us. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, continuing coverage of the guilty verdict of Robert Tellis. Stay tuned.